internet. You were saying that your internet went down, like that Xfinity took your internet down a couple months ago, and so same with ours last week on Tuesday. I couldn't even do this call, and it just stayed down, and then I finally figured out that I just needed to reboot. Like they never said anything, but I just needed to reboot my modem, and things started up again. But like there was no notification or anything. And then today it went down again too, right in the middle of the steward's call. So I don't know what's going on.
They don't communicate, and man, when they go out, like I was out for 15 hours. I just like no communication, no nothing. It's crazy.
Yeah. Hey, Zepti.
Hey, everyone.
Okay. Well, let's give it a couple more minutes. I have a feeling we'll have a few more people joining. But Griff is out and Livia is out. So, yeah, and it probably won't be as many people as last week, I'm guessing. But I think YGG will probably be joining. One thing that I don't know if everybody's used to this at this point, but if you see up in the upper right-hand corner, there's like a little chat thing that says show chat. We've been testing this out in a couple of calls, and it's great. It's like a great way to ask questions or make comments and stuff like that without interrupting somebody. Okay, well let's go ahead and get started. So we have this tradition that we've been doing, which is basically somebody on the call reads the Sampo mission. And so, hey Nate, do you want to do it today? Can you see that okay?
Yeah, give me 1 second. Sorry. I can. Yes. Let's see. The tagline or under the agenda?
The mission.
Oh, there it is. Okay. The Sampo Working Group develops and grows the value of the economic layer of the token engineering commons. It aligns the microeconomy with the TEC mission and the collective success and individual benefit to token holders.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, I just like grounding ourselves in that as we get going. Hey, CryptoZach. So to kick us off today, I thought it would be good to just kind of touch base on this question, which is, what are the most meaningful ways to acknowledge your contributions to a team like Sampo, like this? Let's start off. Septimus, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. I do not expect any reward from Sampo. Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like I'm contributing on different working groups, even in Common Stack. At some point, I also have to talk with Reef how we are going to handle this, because I'm judging all over transparency, even if sometimes I'm not transparency related. But at this point, I would say, like, I honestly do not expect anything from Sampo, like, at least until I talk with Grief, who are going, like, because at some point Grief was telling me, like, let's get things simple, which I agree. But at the same time, like, I feel like the TC right now is having some issues, so it doesn't feel also fair. So yeah, I mean, I do not expect any compensation from Sampo at this point. But yeah, I'm happy to contribute, and my major goal here is like just provide mutual monitoring as a community member, and of course, like, if especially like the treasury manager thing, I want to be there, and I do not expect anything. I'll pass it to Nate.
Yeah, honestly, what I'm most interested in getting out of all of this is helping to, witness the process first, and then try to, see how we can collaborate on such a very touchy subject matter. You know, the work that we do in this working group will be under a microscope, and so I think getting what I get out of this, and I expect to get out of this, is learning how to kind of balance more delicate decisions than other working groups have to deal with. I mean, the directions that we take have to be thought out. They have to be methodical, and they have to take into consideration a lot of different viewpoints. And so, for me, that's what I'm really looking forward to getting out of this. Compensation-wise, no, not for me. But yeah, I'll pass it over to Bear.
Yeah, thank you, Nate. So talking about acknowledgement, I wouldn't say I'm looking for any acknowledgement from the community in regards to my work. I feel like what I'm more looking into is to actually have an impact in the community, that it's reflected in the Sampo case economically. So I would say that would be a meaningful acknowledgement, like for myself, to feel that I've been able to provide some value, and that this place is just like better off than before. So I think that would be for me. I'll just pass it to Mount Manu.
Yeah, thank you. I missed what the question was that we're answering.
Yeah, it's what are the most meaningful ways to acknowledge your contributions in a team like Sampo? And welcome, Mount Manu, and welcome, Tam.
What are the most meaningful ways to acknowledge my contributions in this team? I don't know. I think I haven't been to a lot of meetings. I think I came to the initial ones. I think if Sampo is within the same wavelength of openness as other working groups that are very receptive to one's ideas and opinions, and trying to find a way through problem solving, then that's all the acknowledgement I get. I don't get it externally, the acknowledgement, so that's why I'm having trouble answering this. The work that you do and the quality that you do it is for me is enough. So within the frame of people are already very open to receiving my ideas. So if that weren't the case, then I would ask for that. But since that's already a given, then it's really up to me. So I'll pass it to, I don't know who's left, so I'll pass it to Gideon.
I realize I didn't answer the question, so I'm just going to say praise as the method of acknowledgement. So sorry for my rant.
Thank you.
And I guess I'm the last to go. So I'll say most meaningful way to acknowledge my contribution. I'll second Nate on this one. I like the idea of being praised for my contributions here. Was there a second part of the question?
No, that's it. I mean, it's not just about compensation, but it's really just more broadly. So that's good to know, but it's also just best way to acknowledge people's contributions here. Could be many different forms.
Cool. I'll leave it at that and pass back to you, Gideon.
Okay, and Crypto Zach, do you want to answer?
You're muted.
I think you're muted. Still can't hear you. Do you want to drop off the call and then maybe pop back on and see if that solves it? Meanwhile, NT, do you want to go?
Sure, thanks. I guess I'm in the same page as Manu. Just being open to ideas and collaboration is always appreciated. But and then just I guess depending on the contribution, a pat on the back can be enough, or praise. And I guess I guess it's important to have in mind that as contributors, start to be more involved in the working group. So it's important to always, have in mind to ask them whatever they may need to be successful. And that's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you. Hold on, just let me get this last note here.
Now,
And
can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, cool. I'm here to identify and establish best practices for sustainable funding of decentralized communities, and I'm a big believer in in retroactive funding for contributors that had a major impact in ecosystems. So I'm not really worried too much about establishing a way to get paid right now. I think that. Community, if a community values my participation, they will eventually agree that I should be incentivized to continue participating. Even if that agreement never happens, I'm here to discuss and brainstorm more with very cutting edge, smart people in the DAO space and identify good standards that we can all apply across this industry.
Okay, thanks everybody. And for me personally, yeah, this is not really about money for me. This is really about feeling like I'm making an impact, and especially right now, between now and the end of the year, I feel like we've got a big lift to do here, and so I'm excited about that. Like I feel like there's a sense of mission that's very strong in this working group. Okay, so okay, let's go through the updates. First one is that our funding proposal passed, so that's great news. So we can actually get to work setting up the multi-sig right now. We will have, I'm hoping to have 3 of 5 votes for the multi-sig. Right now we have Tam and Livia and me and Bear on board, and I'm hoping to get Griff on there as well. And we'll have 3 out of 5 on that to approve transfers of funds. We are in the midst of this message to token holders right now, trying to figure that out. The message itself is pretty much done. I'm waiting for one more, like an editorial pass from Taxel. But we're trying to figure out what's going to be the best way to get this out. And some of this comes down to we don't. So it's there are 2 issues. One is that we've got names of the hatchers. That's missing some of the other token holders who are not, some of the newer ones who are not hatchers. But I think that's more of that's less of an issue. It's not that many people really. So then the question becomes like, do we just rely on email? Which we have for like, what is it, like 270 or something, or no. Let me get the numbers. Let me get the actual numbers. We have emails for 209 of the 270 or 268 hatchers. So we could do that, but we're thinking possibly that we might use a personal outreach through DMs on Discord as a way to simultaneously notify people of this message and then also ask them for their preferred communications mechanism. So we're still trying to figure that out, but my goal is to try to get this locked down within the next couple of days so that we can actually get this message out. Are there any comments or thoughts about that right now? Nope. Okay. Next update is from, you know what I'm going to ask is, let's do this just as a practice, because I'm kind of going back and forth between the agenda and Clarity and Discord. So if somebody has something that they want to add, just like add something in a text, and I'll just keep popping back and forth and looking at the text. Does that sound good? I'm going to assume that sounds good.
Yep.
Okay. So, last week, Bear and I were going through the new Clarity 2.0 base. There's been some cool new changes. This is a major upgrade for Clarity, and so we're now starting to put in place like some methods for tracking projects in Clarity, and then making sure that we're syncing that with ZenHub. So that's part of what we're doing. And if you look around in the Clarity base, you'll start to see that if you go onto the home page of it, you'll see at the top there's here, I'll just show you very quickly. I don't want to spend we'll look at this more closely next week, but if you look here, there's like a home page with links to the major documents, major things that we're working on. There's roadmap, and this basically has Bear went in and put in like, these are our June goals that we agreed to in the proposal, in the funding proposal. Here's everything we agreed to in July, and so on, August and September. So we're going to use this to track our commitments and then also report back to the community and to token holders, how we're doing against those commitments. And if you want to get back to any of these key, so this is like all of our meetings are right here. So we just pop back to that. A lot of energy last week around the question of treasury management. And so we're going to pick up on that and try to build off of that momentum. Bear's going to send out a doodle to see if we can find a time to kick off that work. And so the people right now we have as being interested in this topic are YGG, Zepti, CryptoZac, Gene, Rex, Mert, Nate, Bear, and me. And Nate, I added you in there, even though you didn't specifically say that, but it seems like you've been kind of like, this has been something you've been interested in. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it's important, and even if I'm not involved in a direct way, I kind of just want to be here for it. So thank you.
Okay. We'll when we yeah, Manu.
I'm interested as well, so just add me.
Okay. And what we'll try to do, we're still trying to figure out exactly how we're going to do this, but what we'll try to do is have it possible for people to play a very active role. Like we'll have like a core team where it's very active and there's like certain expectations in terms of how much time, and then like more of a periphery. So you can kind of like plug in and maybe, perform advice process kind of thing. Still working through, but we'll talk that through on the call. So basically expect in the next couple days a doodle from Bear to set that up. Yeah.
Just an update, Gideon. The doodle is already up. I created a phone manager thread on the Discord. So I tagged like the initial people that was interested yesterday. But like if there's more people interested, just go there and click the doodle, and you can just like pick the time that work for you. I open it for like this week and next week also, because I haven't been receiving like much answer. I think just Septi is the one that selected their times. So if you are interested and if you want to do it, just go over there and let the call happen.
Awesome. Thank you, Bear. That's great. Okay, so one of the things that I wanted to dive into today, as this call today is going to be a lot about like how we organize ourselves and kind of our philosophy about how we want to work together. And so I just wanted to touch base on something that was actually in the Sampo manifesto, right? Which is the working style. So let's just dive into this real quick. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to use Sampo as kind of like a lab, like a working lab, to test out some ways of running a working group, and just innovate a little bit on some of how we get stuff done. And so I wanted to share some of these. Can everybody see this? Yeah, you can see this, right? The working style. I'll assume if you can't, just say no. So what I wanted to talk about is this, and maybe just take like 10 or 15 minutes right now to just walk through some of these and get some feedback. And the way that I'd like to do it is, if there are initial things that come to mind right now as we're going through it, then please feel free to just jump in or do some comments on the side. And if you need some more time to digest it, then feel free to come in and just add comments on this in the actual document itself in Clarity. So one of the things is I'm a big believer in accountability, and like making that accountability be really impact oriented, practical, and mission driven, right? So like I think the Clarity will help us to do that, to like keep track of our commitments to one another and keep track of our commitments to the community. That's part of what Bear and I are going to be working on, to try to organize ourselves better around that. I'm not going to read all these things. People, you can read this yourself or come back to it later. So I'll stop for a minute here about the accountability thing and see if people have comments or questions on that. Okay, we'll keep going. How about this? I'll go through the whole thing. Deliberately developmental. What do I mean by that? I actually would really love to have this. This is not a primary purpose to help people develop personally and professionally. It's a secondary purpose, but I think it's important, and I think it's like it's an attractor for talent. So if we can use our work together as a way to grow, both personally and professionally, I think that's really helpful. It'll help Sampo to do a better job, but it'll also help each one of us to get better in our work. And I think that's in the long run, that's going to be one of the most attractive things about working in this working group, hopefully, and also TEC more generally over time. Hierarchical. What do I mean by that? I don't believe in, having spent time in a traditional power hierarchy at Microsoft, there are all kinds of problems with that. And yet there are reasons to have like processes or structures for accountability. And the old models, they don't work, but that doesn't mean that we can't have some way of holding ourselves accountable. And so that's part of what we've got to figure out. The whole idea of a hierarchy is like this idea that there is like maybe reputation, right, around like your experience and your actual impact that, as you've proven yourself in a working group like Sampo, then you maybe get access to projects that have greater and greater impact and sensitivity, right? Nate was talking about how this, like there's a lot of sensitivity around the issues that we're working on here. And so, it's like the toughest problems we're not going to hand to somebody who hasn't really proven themselves. Once you've proven yourselves over time, then you get access to the more difficult and more challenging projects. Asynchronous. This is something that NT has brought up many times. I'm a big believer in it. We have a lot of meetings in the TEC, and so it's like, how do we really treat our time together as very precious? What's the best way to do that? So trying to come up with processes to be able to do. And lastly, soulful. There's probably a better way to describe this. I don't mean this in like a spiritual, like I'm not trying to like preach or anything like that, but I'm just saying, can we balance our tasks with some relationship, Can we make sure that we're able to be authentic and really be ourselves in this community? We really like each other. We like working with each other. We have fun. I think that's also important. So I'm going to stop talking now and just open it up for general comments. I'll take notes. And again, feel free, if you don't feel like doing this right now, or you need some more time to process your thoughts about how you'd want to work together, feel free to come back and add notes later or add comments.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Gideon. I love this model. This is super innovative and very, very well put together for like a system for how to encourage expertise of an organization or a group of people to come together and focus on where they can add the most value when needed, so that individuals can maximize the value of their time and the value of their knowledge that they have, on demonstrating their expertise and sharing it in all the ways that they could do best, and TEC can be one of them when needed. I'm really curious. How did you come up with this model? Where did you get all this from? How did you put this together? Because this is really, I've never seen a model so well put together like this before.
Well, I'm glad that it resonates. This is just School of Hard Knocks, having run, worked with lots of teams, run teams at Microsoft, seen what worked, what didn't work, run into a lot of problems with hierarchy and people getting stuck in bureaucracy, and then also running. The biggest thing was actually running this mission-driven tech consulting group. That was where I learned the most about kinds of things. And also, like, I will say, I mean, this is not false modesty. I I learned a lot of stuff in these different contexts, but man, it's really different here, right? This, like, the TEC, very different. And so, I'm kind of an old dog. I've told this to Tam. I'm like an old dog learning new tricks. And so, like, you can definitely call me when you see me doing, like, bringing stuff from the old world in that's not useful. Just tell me. I'm super open.
Awesome. Well, thank you for putting this together and sharing.
I would like to add, like, for example, regarding this treasury thing, like the way I would like to work is like someone championing it, making a proposal in the forum, and then people like commenting in the forum and saying like, starting from a proposal, then start saying like, maybe changing radically, like maybe okay, what was proposed here is not good because this, and this, and I propose this other thing, and then generating a debate in the forums. If people is engaging, I think like the forums is the best tool because you got time to think. You are not have to get everyone in the meeting at one press. What if Trent cannot make it to a meeting? If it's on the forum, he might have the time to comment, or maybe at some point in the day, and you can get more feedback from the broader community.
Thanks, Zepti. I think that's great. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the other things I learned in my last job is like, particularly for people who are less extroverted, like sometimes people need time to process, right? And so doing an async like that, it opens it up and makes it fair for everybody to be able to comment, and also probably leads to better, more thoughtful conversations and debate. Any other thoughts at this point? Are we missing something? And welcome, Muxa84. You just come into a meeting. Oh, okay. Okay, so I'm gonna wait. Hey Rex, I'm gonna just pause for just a moment in case somebody's still kind of formulating some thoughts on this, and I'll just wait like another 30, 40 seconds of awkward silence, and then we'll move on if there's nothing.
Sure. Hey, Gideon. Hey, everyone. Sorry to turn up late. I'm pretty burnt out from Prague, I gotta say. But I do like this model and how we're gonna work. I have no other things that brought up. I think it's pretty comprehensive, and yeah, I trust your experience.
Okay, thank you. Okay. All right, we're gonna move on, and last time I'll say it is like again, feel free to comment, or if you don't want to comment, you can just shoot me a DM if it's something you feel like I don't really want to say this public. I don't, for whatever reason, you can just DM me. Okay. Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I was just gonna make a request. Whenever you get a chance, would you be able to put these documents into a pinned message?
I'm sorry, to put it into a what?
On the pinned message within Sampo channel.
Yeah, it should be there. Let me just show you. If you're not seeing this, then that's a problem. If you go, are you in Clarity right now?
Oh no, I'm in the Discord. I'm sorry. I can go to the Clarity.
Yeah. So yeah. So it's I see. Yeah. If you go, there should be a link. Okay, I will. There should be a link in the top of the Sampo Discord. It should say app clarity.so Sampo, and that will link to our base. And if that's not working for you, please let me know, and I'll fix it.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let me drop back here. So on compensation, we were touching on this earlier. I just wanted to highlight this. This was in the proposal. I just want to make sure that everybody's in sync here. So in terms of like ongoing salaries, we've kept it pretty tight. Me, and I'm just saying I think like 25 hours, even though I'm going to full time on this. And then organizer is Bear. And then we're going to be looking for a fundraiser starting in July, and then a fund manager. Fund manager's work that'll come out of the treasury work that we're doing. This will be somebody, I mean, defining this job will be one of the first things that we're going to do with that treasury. Figure out what that role is going to be. Bounties are going to be, for projects. What we've got right now in terms of those kinds of projects, analysts. So that's kind of like the work that Rex and Anik have been doing. Mostly Rex, actually. Fundraising. So that'll be things like researching grants, actually doing grant applications, helping with fundraising communications, etc. Fund researcher is tied more with the treasury work, and that's basically doing research on how we're going to invest our treasury funds, and there may be other things that come out of that too. Builder is going to be something that will start to ramp up a little bit later in the process, and that's going to be doing things like helping us with getting our services up and running. Probably the first ones of these will be actually our token gate in the Discord server, how we do that. And actually, that's something that I've been talking to Enti about, is how we handle token gating a couple of channels in TEC Discord. And then I think I've talked about this briefly before, but Sampo channel praise. The praise folks have been super helpful in like making it possible. I mean, they're working on making it possible so that we can do praise in the Sampo channel, and then once a month we can take that praise, do a data dump, and then we've got a certain amount of funds set up each month to allocate for topping off the regular praise, the TC-wide praise, with stuff that we feel like was very, very useful for moving the Sampo projects forward. I'm going to pause here. Any questions about that? Any of that?
Are we aiming to having the Treasury meeting this week or next one?
It's going to depend on how we handle the doodle. Like, it just depends on how many people sign up and when we can do it. But hopefully this week or early next.
Yeah, so right now the times are open for this and next week, but yeah, it depends on what times people choose. Yeah.
I would say reach out to DM. Like sometimes people is not checking like the Discord even if you tag them, because there's people that have thousands of notifications in Discord. So yeah, make sure like I think that's a we want to hurry and it's worth a DM.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Septi. Thank you. I will do that. Definitely.
Okay. If there are no more thoughts or questions on this, we'll move on. I think there actually is one thing. I'm going to be talking with Tam about this tomorrow. But I'll throw it out here today, just while we've got this group gathered and we have a little bit more time than I thought we were going to have. I think one of the questions that we're going to run into pretty quickly on the Treasury is, if we pull funds from the common pool, let's say, there's like 700,000 XDAI right now. Let's say we pulled out 300 of that to invest. There's kind of two paths forward that I can see. In one of those paths, we take those funds out, and then we change the parameters on the conviction voting to make it seem as though we never took that money out, right? So that it doesn't slow down our spending. The other option would be to just say, yeah, we're going to take it out, and that's going to really slow down our spending earlier than it would have happened without pulling that funding out for Treasury. So does what I'm saying, first of all, does that make sense? Is that clear?
Yeah, I would consider a third option, like something in between, because would probably be very hard to pass proposals otherwise. But keeping like the same is also not feeling great. So maybe something like in between would be, I don't know, at least nice to think of.
Yeah, I really do think this should be a very iterative process where we take a little bit out and we learn how to manage that small amounts, find out what processes we need to establish, what type of monitoring we need to have, just go through the process just on a low risk environment before we propose to take out $300,000 out of the common pool and proceed to attempt to do something with it. And I understand people want to move fast right now, but I do think it's really important that we take this step by step and making sure that we do everything the correct way and give that accountability another level of trust with the community.
Great. Well, we'll talk some more about that for sure. But I think that those are both good, good insights. Okay.
Can I ask, what do we have a scope for this working group in terms of like what it all covers, what we're trying to do, and if that scope is very large, is it possible for us to, get into like smaller subgroups to really, focus on one area and maybe not be so overburdened with a million different directions? Because the decision space, like I just keep coming back to that, it's just huge and massive. And
yeah. Absolutely. I mean, the hard part is that the TC has like all of these needs right now, and so, well, let me ask you: are you saying for you individually, or are you saying for the working group? Are you saying I would like to figure out where I focus my energy, or are you saying how do we as a whole focus our energy?
Yeah, how we as a whole, because I think that a lot of people may have the perception that not only are we dealing with treasury management, but also finding token utility and doing all these other initiatives that have to do with treasury management or kind of parallel to it, and as well as just making general decisions on who's able to do it and making the rules around it. And so I think there's a lot of different areas that are being covered here, and I'm not sure exactly. Maybe if we just define the scope, I don't know if that's possible, but I just think it'd be more clear for the working group and how we organize ourselves.
So what I would say is the manifesto outlines most of that, but so that's part of the answer. Is I'd recommend that you take a look at that if you haven't seen that already, and maybe comment there, or feel free to connect with me afterwards. And then I guess the other thing is more breaking this out into different teams. I personally feel like over time, Sampo is going to probably break out into like pieces of this, or it's so big that over time, I guess some of these things will splinter off. So that, like, for example, the financial analysis stuff, I've tried to move as much of that our work over to transparency, so that we're more like an internal customer rather than like driving any of that. And then I think over time we'll probably see maybe there'll be like a treasury management group that will spin off from Sampo and become its own thing. But that's just that's me just conjecturing right now. Hey, YGG, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Gideon. Sorry I'm late.
No problem. Yeah, Nate. I mean, I totally hear you. This is like it's one of the things that kind of keeps me up at night. Is like we've got so much stuff to do, and yet the problem is that we don't. There's no other place right now where this stuff is gathered. So I think the key is going to be one, just like prioritizing as ruthlessly as possible. That's part of what the funding proposal was all about, was trying to prioritize and identify just like what our core objectives are over the next 3.5 months. So that's most of what, to answer your question, I think that the bigger question you're asking is like, what are we really trying to do over this next quarter? And are those the right things? So that's in the funding proposal. Does that make sense?
No, definitely it does.
Okay. Let me go back to the meetings. So YGG, actually, your timing is perfect, because we wanted to just touch base on whether this is so the idea that YGG and I've been just kind of going back and forth on just very briefly is to see whether one way. Let me restart. One way that startups conserve their cash is by using equity as a way to reward people and do it in a way that doesn't chew into their hard currency. And so, we're not using words like equity, investment, things like that, but we do have tokens. And the question is there a way that the TEC could slow its burn rate by relying a little bit more heavily on tokens and rewarding with the TEC token in particular? So, the upside, the good things about this would be, we would share in the upside of our collective success. That's great. We would also broaden ownership, which I think could be really good for the governance of our commons, right? If we found ways to get the TC token in more of the contributors' hands, that will be good for our the wisdom of crowds, right? More people in on the governance decisions, especially if we end up being able to implement some type of quadratic voting in the gardens someday. And then, like I said, it preserves our stable coin. The risks, of course, are that there's a lot of volatility, and we're in a bear market and maybe going into a serious recession. So there's a lot of risk. And so one of the things that one of the questions I wanted to just throw out to everybody is it worth exploring some way of incentivizing people taking a portion of their payment, their contributions, their compensation, I should say, in TEC. And there are a lot of ways of doing this. One might be to offset tribute fees from the ADC, from the augmented bonding curve. Another would be to say, hey, if you're taking X DAI, you're getting compensated at the 21 X DAI per hour. But if you take TEC, it might be at some multiple of that. And so what I was asking YGG is there a way to model this to see what the impacts of something like this might be? Not just for Sampo, but for the TEC. Because this will be the last thing I'll say and then I'll open it up. This could have, if this makes sense and it's something that is attractive to people, this could have a big effect on slowing our XDAI burn rate. So thoughts, questions, comments, concerns?
I love this idea. My first question is the technical feasibility. How do we do this without spending XDAI to buy TEC and or turning off the bonding curve? You're on mute, Gideon.
Thanks, Tam. Yeah, it would require, I think this is part of what we'd have to model to see, but it would require spending XDAI, but then in theory that XDAI would go back in with the purchase of the TEC. And so I'm not sure what would be the best, if there's a best way to do that. Would we do it off of the ABC, outside of it? I don't know.
I have one question. What's the difference of paying, I don't know, someone $10 and then you do all this thesis stuff and the people end up with $8? What's the difference of, instead of doing all of that, just paying $8 and that's it? At the end of the day, the final user is going to get less if you buy and then they have to pay the tributes, which is, I don't say it's good or bad. I'm just saying why it's the need of all the process when we can just get, if people want TC, they can buy it themselves
It's always that idea of opt in and opt out, right? So somewhat unrelated, but when it comes to organ donors, right? In those countries where you have to opt out to kind of not give your organs to like other people who need them, those countries end up having a much higher amount of organs available, right? So it's slight tweaking, and I'm not sure whether it would cause like a massive change even if we did that, but you'd expect that those like on the fence of whether to like keep XDAI or keep TC would just keep whatever they're given, right? That would be the only difference.
I would also say that it kind of, I think this would work really well if we didn't have a secondary market. I know I'm biased in this opinion, but and kind of in the minority. But yeah, I think if we didn't have the secondary market, because we control the liquidity as well, so we're just selling into our own liquidity by having the secondary market, but we're not getting the benefit of the common pool generation. So yeah, I don't know. But then it kind of cancels out that opt-in, opt-out strategy. So throwing that out there.
Yeah, one comment on paying in tokens is there is a tax consequence of doing that, where if you receive TEC as payment, you report that into the IRS as income at the price of TEC when you received it. And if the price of TEC falls down a lot, that's a capital gain, that's a capital loss, and you can't use that to offset the income that you received from getting paid in the TEC tokens. So if the price goes up, it's not a problem. But if the price goes down, you have a tax liability that you need to pay for.
But can't you? This is like US specific, right? But isn't there a way to also offset some of your capital loss with capital gains in other?
Sure, but receiving income in TEC is not a capital gains or capital loss. It's income that is not offsettable with capital losses.
Okay, so there are some questions about basically tax implications. And Tam's asking some, I think, more fundamental questions about just like, is this even technically feasible?
I'm going to jump in because I love this idea so much, but the point of equity is that there's some risk to it, right? Equity, if you have options or if you have equity in a company and the company is successful, you have outsized rewards. And if the company fails, well, your equity is worth nothing, So it's sort of like, I like the incentive alignment idea of this. And I think that it's worth exploring, but I don't know how we could do it with an augmented bonding curve. Because simply we would have a capital outlay in order to use TEC tokens to as I don't think we could do like a pure equity model. I think we would actually have to buy our equity, which deviates from that model.
So a concept to throw out is hypothetically, technically, and then also just would we want to do this? Is it possible to have inflation on TEC? So is it possible for us as a DAO to mint tech tokens outside of the bonding curve and have those tokens actually be interoperable with the bonding curve, so we could sort of dilute the tech tokens as they are through inflation, so we could sort of like a company can issue additional shares. Can the TEC, the organization, the DAO, can we mint additional tech tokens that we could use for financing? I don't know what that would look like from a technical perspective or the sort of philosophy behind that. But I'm just wondering if that is in the realm of possibility, because I think that would be very similar to a company issuing shares.
Yeah, I do think that, I mean, you run into reserve problems if we did that correct. Like the TECs that is out there is no longer fully back to the amount that we have it. And that's why I'm kind of like against the idea of going into reserve either. So it's kind of one of those things where I'm like,
it's almost like a depegging.
Yeah.
How about this? We're running out of time right now. Are there people, I mean, this may be something that we look at very quickly and say, this is just not feasible, you know, like, or it would be super hard. It would change just too much. But is it worth exploring? And if it is, are there people who would be interested in exploring this?
If there's something here to be modeled, and there's sort of a team of people who are interested in doing that, then I'm interested in being available as a sort of a mentor, helping walk people through how we might model this using token engineering tools.
Awesome. Great. Anybody else interested in this idea?
I would be interested because I'm not making any form of income in TEC. If TEC could be used to provide me some sort of income, I would be interested, or to provide other newcomers to TEC that aren't part of the hatch. It would be interesting. However, I'm usually against inflating the supply to incentivize behavior. But if that behavior provides more value than the value of the new supply that is minted, then in almost all cases, it's okay and beneficial towards the value of the network.
I just want to throw something else out there, which is helping the reward system fine-tune praise to be the mechanism that provides TEC to contributions in the TEC. I think that might be the path of least resistance to go down this versus trying to find another way to distribute TEC outside of the existing model.
Okay, that's great feedback. All right. Thank you, everybody, for the insights here. Let's see, NT, we're running out of time to talk about the token gating, but I'm going to take this and we'll talk about this next week. Oops. Okay, so for next week, I hope that we'll be able to do an update on what's happening with the consulting intake process. Tam and I will be talking tomorrow about this. And then we'll try to do an update on Clarity and kind of like maybe even just like a walkthrough of how to use it, what we're trying to, how we're trying to use it specifically for Sampo, and then token gating. And if there's anything else that people want to add to next week's, feel free to come in to the agenda here and add it. Okay, we're out of time. Thank you, everybody, for joining today. Another good call. Lots of good insights. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Gideon.
See you all next week.
Thanks, Gideon.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.